All right, we got that up and running. We don't have time to waste. Let's get started. Actually, I gotta waste a little bit of time. Where's my Miro board? ZBrush Miro board. So today, as hopefully the title says, we're gonna be doing some log work. So let's get it cracking. Let me move this down. Okay. So I'm gonna take a look at these, and this, what I'm really trying to get to is this visible log. I think that's what they called it. But I'm gonna start simple, just with the old plain. That's the anatomically correct log. But you can see basically all it is a cylinder, and then another cylinder. And let's go ahead and make a log, and we'll talk about hopefully a bunch of cool stuff that we can talk about. Let me move this over, and I'll let y'all tell me if everything's sounding all right. All right, moved. So first thing, let's go in here to texture, import, and I'm just gonna grab some reference. So I'm just gonna say, what's a regular old look? This one looks plain. So grab some reference here, and just like I always do, I'm gonna go in here to this plus sign, load it up in here, and now we're in Spotlight, and then I can hit this little opacity slider. We can dump that down, and now I can put something behind it. So I'm gonna do Shift Z to get rid of that. And first, we're not gonna overthink it. We're just gonna go in here. We're gonna grab a cylinder primitive, because log is basically a cylinder. Go in here to edit mode, so that we can rotate around it if you want to. If we go in here to polyframe, I'll go ahead and change my material out so you can see a little bit better. You can go down here to initialize, and you change your H divides and your V divides to whatever you want. If I was to want to start box modeling this, maybe I'd choose like 16, hit tab, and then 4 just to get a nice plain cylinder. But even if you wanted to just start with whatever and then start sculpting on it, you can go in here to make Polymesh 3D. That turns it into a sculptable mesh. So now we can go through here and sculpt on it. Usually it'll give us a actual polygroup like that. And then we're off to the races. So in order to get the nuance of the log, this one's pretty straight up and down, but you'll see some of these kind of curve in, some of them kind of curve out a little bit. Some of them have a little taper top to bottom. If you do have multiple edge rings, you're going to want to go in here. Oh, sorry. Hey, everybody. Sean, yeah, I'm always, that first Tuesday came already. Actually, it is, yeah, it's October 1st. I'm usually rarely streaming the first day of the month, but every once in a while. Great to see you again as well. So basically, here's our log. And if I want to scale it, obviously we can uniform scale. If I want to scale on just that one axis, we can go through here. We can hold down Alt and then scale on that Y axis to kind of slim it down. If we want to taper it, we can go in here to this gear icon, hit W, and then go into the gear icon. There you go. There is a taper in here. So if you just want to taper, make the top bigger or smaller, you can do that. And then there's also that exponent fall off. So if you wanted to go through here and play around with hey, I want to kind of bulge out at the bottom or squeeze into the top, that's where that comes into play. You could also, what I would maybe consider is go in here to, you can even go in here to bend curve, add another resolution, and then pick that middle one and go in here and kind of scale that in and out if you wanted to, get a little taper. But the one with maybe the most control is the deformer. So let's go in here, and this gives you like a lattice deformer. You can go through here and change this. So no matter how many spans you have, you can go through here and you can just unmask these middle ones here and just go through here and just do a quick taper. Now, you can also, if you did the initialize step and you got rid of all these edges, you're good. If you want to get rid of them now, you still can. Geometry, edge loop. What are we going to do? Delete loops. That'll get rid of them. And then you can go in here with your ZModeler brush, B, Z, M, hover over an edge, go in here and do an insert, multiple edge loops. Let's do interactive elevation. So now, and also we'll say keep polygroup, so we're not getting stepped polygroups there. And we can go through here and you can see we can kind of pull in or we can kind of bulge out, and already we're getting a nice log shape. So we'll go ahead and actually start making our log. Actually, you know what? Let's do this. I'm going to go back to a cylinder, hit Make Polymesh 3D. I'm going to start subdividing this. We're going to hit Control D a couple times just to kind of smooth it out a little bit. And then I'm going to go down here to Delete Lower so I can start using IMM brushes. Or if you wanted to, you could just go down here and say, you know what, let's not overthink this. Let's go down here to our, don't go in there very often, Dynamesh. Not that I don't use Dynamesh a lot, it's just in my custom menu here. So go in here to Dynamesh, and then I want to insert a cylinder on the side of this thing. So BI brush insert, and we're going to go over here to IMM primitives, hit M, Go in here to, sorry, BI, brush insert. Yeah, IMM primitives. I'm going to hit M on my keyboard, and there's an insert cylinder right here. And we'll just go to the side. I'm going to pull in, or pull out to make it the right size. I'm going to push in a little bit to thin it out just a little bit. And then we'll rotate this back, stick it in there. And then if we wanted to, let's rotate this around a little bit. And then if we wanted to, again, continue thicker, thinning this out, again, we can hold down Alt. It's already down the axis. We can kind of thin this out a little bit. We can rotate it around. We can even go in here to our inflate brush and, you know, go in and fatten this up on the side. Hold down Shift to smooth it out. Control drag again. Now we've got our log. If we want to go ahead and, you know, because this is kind of rounded at the top, and you can see here, it's pretty buzzed. You know, somebody took a, I don't know, some sort of wood cutting thing. I can tell I'm not much of a handyman. What would you use? Like a saw, like just a hand saw, I suppose. Control Shift. We're gonna go in here and we'll do a knife curve. If you want to just, you know, chop off the bottom, chop off the top, chop off the side here. We'll tap Alt twice to kind of get that out of the way. And now the cool thing is we have a polygroup here, 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 and here. So we can continue sculpting. You know, just go through here and start making this all logged up and made out of wood and bark and such. But before you do that, if you were so inclined, you can go in here to Polyframe, and we can go in here to ZBrush. Since we got nice clean polygroups mostly. This polygroup in between here isn't that clean, but you know what? Let's do Control Shift drag over both those polygroups, and you'll see I switch back to Select Rec there sneakily. Control Shift Q is polygroup grow. I'll hit Control W. So this is all one polygroup. So now we got polygroups on all our major faces. Now we can say ZBrush half. Or if you wanted to, just drop this, you know, count down to like 5,000 or so. Depth size down to 0, nice even quads. Keep groups, smooth groups down to 0 because they're already smooth. Hit ZBrush, and now you'll have a nice sculptable log mesh. Very predictable, easy to, you know, obviously go in here and sculpt on. And now if you wanted to keep these edges crisp, we can go in here to Crease, PG, hit Control D to subdivide. You can hit Uncrease All, and then subdivide again. That'll kind of give you a nice little fall off. And now there's multiple ways to do that. We'll talk about that later. And now we've got a very nice, predictable, sculptable log to finish out. Similarly, if we were going to start out, again, just, you know, make Polymesh 3D, I might even go in here and say group by normals. That's going to be underneath your polygroup menu. So now we've got polygroups where we want them. I'm going to go into my custom menu here for like, you know, a cylinder. We'll just do cylinder 32. Let's turn on our floor. So here's our Z forward. So off to the side here on the X, we'll say you're going to get a little thing here. And then on this one, we can go ahead and Boolean. Now, before I commit this, what I'm going to do is there's a visibility hide point that'll kind of hide what's unmasked. That's also in my custom menu here. And I like to do just another group by normals here. And again, that's underneath your, sorry. Try not to go into my custom menu too early in the stream. Group by normals here, you can change that angle. And again, that's just going to give me polygroups where I want them. So now, how did I get? Okay, so if I want to, if for somehow I got the same polygroup on both of these, all I get to do is have these showing and then just do a regroup visible. There we go. So that'll give us new polygroups there. And then just like we did before, we can go through here and we can say, you know, change this if we want to. We can go through here and we can inflate like so. If you wanted to give this a little bend or a little curve, you could go in here and say, you know, again, insert, nope, hover over an edge, insert multiple edge loops, interactive elevation, and we could pull through here. We could add some spans, we could thin or thicken this out or whatever we want to do. Once we're good with this, I like to go into, so you can see it, just right here with my crease PG. That's going to be your crease polygroup, which is underneath your crease menu, and then dynamic. You can just turn on dynamic or hit D on your keyboard, Shift D to turn it off, and that will give us a preview of it being nice and smooth. And if this is looking good and we got some nice clean polygroups on here, this is where we can go in here to our Boolean. We'll say turn on live Boolean. These are both going to be set, or hell, this whole thing is just one object, right? If we had multiple, we could say turn on live Boolean, Boolean it, but we don't even need to do that. All we got to do is go into that gear icon again and do a remesh by union. That will Boolean this result. Let's hit Shift D to turn off smoothing. And that's our result. And then one more time, ZBrush, same, depth size down to 0, keep groups, smooth groups down to 0, ZBrush, Oop, that's not quite enough polygons. Let's try double. That's pretty good. That's almost like a game res. If you want to go a little higher, instead of doing like same, double, or half, you can just turn those off and then just dump in like, you know, again, back 3,500 or so. Yeah, maybe a little bit more. There we go. So, a couple different ways to create a base log. And again, just not overthinking it. Boy, we're just going to make all the logs here. Again, let's do a group by normals, or you could just do a crease with a crease tolerance underneath the crease menu. Immediately, you can say dynamic, and then dynamic apply, so it's real geometry, and then go in here and turn it into a, you know, we already talked about that. Dynamesh, no to freeze transformations. You could even go in here, BS. There's a snake hook brush, BSH, okay. And you could even use Sculptress Pro, so you can turn that on, and you can go ahead and pull this out. There's also some other good ones, BS Sculptress, Snake Sphere, Snake Cactus. You can grab maybe one of these and kind of make your draw size a little, and you can see it's tessellating as we go. We don't even need to use Dynamesh, so you can just pull this. We can pull this out, and then we'll go ahead and you know, smooth that transition here. We'll go ahead and get rid of that little knob on the end here, and again, we'll use knife curve. I think that's a good enough knife brush to use. So now again, don't overthink it. Dynamesh, knife curve, sculpting, whatever you want to do to create your little creation there. Yes, thank you, Earth. Yes, this is absolutely log from Ren and Stimpy. Now, if we wanted to match an exact log, that's where we would need to go. Oh, let me put that back. Sorry about that. Let's not grab the top menu bar. See, we're using ZBrush 2025. Just upgraded. There we go. Okay. So now, let's do. Let's match an actual log. Again, we'll start from scratch. That's not going to take us too long. So we're going to go through here, and we're going to grab ourselves a Cylinder 3D. I'm going to go ahead and turn on Sculptors Pro. Again, texture import. Grab your image. Add it to Spotlight. Z to turn Spotlight on. We can make this more or less opaque. We're going to find our forward here. So here's our forward, and then this is going to be off to the side. So now I'm going to go in here. We are in Make Polymesh 3D, right? There you go. Make Polymesh 3D. And again, you know what? I'm going to just taper this in. We've already talked about that, so I'm just going to do our edge loop, delete loops, and I'm just going to use the modeler for that. So here's our forward, and now you can see this one, if we match the base, it's not quite tall enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into solo mode, hit Shift Z to turn that off. I'm going to hold down Alt, and I'm going to tap on the bottom here. You'll see I'm not in perspective. I don't think I really need it to match a log perspective. I'm not going to be that crazy about it. So we basically reset our pivot. So now when I just do a scale, it'll go boop, and then we'll just kind of match the overall size. And if I needed to, again, I could scale it, hold down Alt along this bottom axis here and just kind of squeeze that in a little bit. And now we're looking pretty good. And then I'll go through here, we'll say skip, and then I'm going to say group by normals, because I'm going to go ahead and start doing my poly grouping. And then when I go through here, insert multiple edge loops, interactive elevation, keep polygroup. We'll go ahead and add some divisions and maybe squeeze it in just a tiny bit. And then I'm going to go into my custom menu here. And just on the side, we're going to pop this one in. And again, we'll do another group by normals. Actually, that did everything. That's fine. Go ahead and put this in here. We'll scale it down just a little bit here. And if we want to scale this bottom one up, what we can do in ZModeler is we can hover over an edge, and we can do a scale edge loop complete, and then we can just scale this bottom here. We don't even have to use our gizmos. We'll kind of flare that out a little bit, and we'll push this into place here. And I'll make this a little bit longer, and then Shift Z. And then one thing I didn't do was we had this all lined up, right? Everything was looking just dandy, and when we have that good to go, what we want to do is we want to kind of store this. So I'm going to go in here to Movie, Timeline, Show, click in there. So now we have this, so I can use my arrow keys to snap it back whenever I want. And now I can position this. So now this one is going to be thinned out a little to kind of match the top here. And then the base, I'm going to go ahead and say Control drag over the bottom here. And now we can just do a uniform scale here. So there we go. And now I can go through here and we'll say insert multiple edge loops, interactive elevation, yada, yada. Y'all know this by now. And then we'll unmask and we'll just kind of squeeze that in a little bit as we add resolution here. There we go. There's our log, give or take. And then again, if we want to continue sculpting on this and making this seamless, I think our best bet still is my favorite. We're going to say crease PG, crease our polygroups. We're going to hit dynamic, apply, hit W, go in here and run a remesh by union. Oh, we have multiple subdivision levels. Just hit delete lower and then remesh by union. There we go. Zero mesh half, tap size down to 0, keep group smooth groups. There we go. Just not enough geometry here. Let's do same. There we go. Got something nice and sculptable to sculpt on. Sure, let's see, blank portrait. Perfect time. I have a massive issue with spotlight. How can I set my mesh into the foreground? So with spotlight, oh, and you have spotlight open and you want to have your mesh like in front of spotlight. You don't have to use spotlight for reference. Let me see. I think I got some. I use Spotlight for reference a lot, but you can put stuff. I don't do it a lot. Image plane sculpting. You can use image planes. You can go in here to the draw menu. Layer. You can drop stuff onto your. Oh, I never do it. You'll have to look it up. I don't know exactly what terms you would need, but there's tons of ways to use reference in ZBrush. And hell, you could even go in here to see-through, and you can just knock see-through back, and you can have an image. Let's load one up real quick. Guess I got rid of that, huh? Streaming. Reference. So if I pull up an image, and I just have it sitting behind ZBrush while I'm using ZBrush, see-through, I can kind of use this to gauge, and then as I'm go through and start sculpting, I don't use see-through a lot either, but again, it's not in front of it. Yeah, I would say that if you wanted to use the in-front stuff, like have your object in front of an image, go down here to, this is image planes, right? Yeah. Image plane sculpting. Let me see, yeah. Boy, it's been a while since I've done this. So I'm grabbing reference. Okay, here's how you can set up image planes. I don't do it a lot, but there you go. Also, if you're anybody here that's new to ZBrush, let's go here. There's the ZBrush section. Playlists. No, home. There we go. ZBrush, what's new? And then right here, intro to ZBrush, new and updated. There's a full playlist in here that, about 50 videos in there. Get you up and running. Get a drink. When I add something to Spotlight, I can't add further pictures because it grays out. Okay, so now what I think that might be, so if you want to have your object in front of your reference image, I would use this. I would use the draw. Basically, the floor planes will have images that you can add to them, and then your object will be in front of the floor planes. And there's other cool stuff you can do too. As far as Spotlight not working, where I've seen that happen is if I'm in, so my standard brush here, Shift Z, I've got my Spotlight in here and I want to add another image, and I happen to be in Z Modeler. If I go in here, it's grayed out. So if I switch over to like a standard brush and then go back in, I have to have a texture selected. So let's do that. Let's grab, so this texture here, I want to add it, it'll let me. If I have Z Modeler selected, it won't, it'll gray out my textures. So, and I don't know that that's the only brush it does that with, but just, stick it on your standard brush or your move brush, and then select the texture and it should be available. If you're in Z Modeler brush, it'll be grayed out. So that might be it. Cool. Yes. And another thing, now this thing might be broken, but I also use Z Plugin Ref Switcher. So if you, I think we did like Walton Goggins recently. So here's my ArtStation page, has a lot of ZBrush stuff on it too. If you go to the ZBrush What's New tab, Here's all the ZBrush stuff, and then my live streams are usually under the all, and then here you'll see, you know, a whole bunch of Walton Goggins stuff, and then yeah, sculpting a likeness. You can go in here. In fact, if we watch this on YouTube, and we'll go down here to the channel chapters, and then Rough Switcher. So this will talk about how to load up Rough Switcher and use that for all your cool creations. But yeah, actually I used that a number of times. But I want to say the ArtStation one might be broken. The Gumroad one seems to still be working, so I don't know. I gotcha, yeah. Yeah, Rough Switcher also uses Spotlight, so again, that gray out would still happen with Rough Switcher too. Is there anything in the new updates to watch out for when looking at older getting started tutorials, common menu shortcuts that might have been tweaked? I usually try to put it in the description if something's been updated, but you know what? I wouldn't trust that either. Let's see. Basically, if you know what? I can give you this. So here's an ideation series. It doesn't have, these are basically video topics, and in here you'll see stuff like, oh, transpose master. So here there's an old transpose master. So these are the how to explain this. I had an old video number 3 on transpose master and updates that happened since then, so I just link to the new what's new transpose master. So you can, if you want to look for topics on here, you can just sit like Control F and say spotlight, and then you can go through here and be like, hey, you won't be able to see the videos, but at least you'll be able to see if there's any underlines for spotlight. But honestly, if you go to the ZBrush What's New, you're going to have, here's the intro to ZBrush, and then all of these What's New videos, like I would say ZBrush 2023, 2022, 2023, and 2024. This should be up through 2021, and then 22, 23, and 24, just go to the What's New. You know, you can even go in here and just, you can see all the new stuff that's been updated. Not ideal. I have been waiting for an excuse to go through and do a complete overhaul. I just haven't done it yet because I'm super lazy. So we have this. We're going to say, if we do dynamic, remember what we did last time where we said, okay, we're going to say crease PG to crease our polygroups. We hit Control D. Actually, we didn't hit dynamic. We hit Control D to subdivide or divide, uncrease all, divide again. We can preview that too, which is what I prefer to do. So we'll turn on dynamic, and then we're going to say crease smooth subdiv of, let's say, yeah, 2. And then if we go down here to our crease menu, there's a crease level. So if we set this to 1, it'll crease one subdivision and then uncrease all and then subdivide one more time. So it's giving us a preview of what that would look like instead of actually applying it. So we can hit Shift D to turn that off. We can continue modeling, and then D to turn that back on. So again, if you want to say, you know, crease level of 2, smooth subdiv of 3, you can, and that'll give you a preview of what that would look like. I like that crease level of 1, smooth subdiv of 2, that's fine. So, and then if we want to start sculpting, we can say dynamic apply, and now we have that. We can go through here, we can smooth out that transition on here. We just start sculpting. So if we wanted to put like bark on here, I guess I would go, if we're doing something stylized, my brain always goes to the orbs, cracks, brushes here, which you can get off the internet somewhere. Brush pack. Let's see if there's any wood. Line, slash curve. This kind of looks kind of woody. Ooh, we need some more resolution. Hit Control D to continue subdividing. There we go. So we can go through here and we can just kind of start, you know, plopping in some wood here. This type of stylized wood, I actually have some downloaded. Let's see if we can do this. So because we have polygroups, which is nice, I'm going to go through here, Control Shift. I'm going to select this one to isolate it, or we can hit W, Control Tap, just to unmask just that section here. So I can go in here to say my comma key. I think I got some alphas, some wood alphas in here. I downloaded off ArtStation. Come on, there we go. Or it might be under brushes. Yeah. I mean, if we wanted to, while we're in here, I think I do have some, not that I would necessarily use these, but if we go in here to nature, I feel like we have some, yeah, here's some like bark. So we can just like, if you double click these, they should jump right into your alpha. we may need to go in here to brush reset current to get our alpha back. But then if we go in here to like our standard brush, let's get rid of the texture. We'll go ahead and clone this off. We'll say drag rect. We'll swap this alpha out with our natural alpha. And then we can go through here and we can just kind of plop in some of this. Now, as we're plopping that in, let's see, it'll start bowing out a little bit. If you want to minimize that, I think we can go in here to alpha, modify, and turn on surface. That'll set a mid value for us. So that'll kind of minimize that bowing out effect. And then you can go in here and drop your Z intensity down, and you can just start dropping this in. Now, if we want to, before we start dropping stuff in, control tap that latest point in history. If you're having trouble getting to it, I'm going to go in here to edit, delete old, or undo history. Control tap that latest point in history, and then as we're going through and making changes, you could do this on a layer if you wanted to, but you can also go in here to adjust last, and as long as you stored that point in history, it's going to adjust last everything you've done up to that point. So you can go through here, and instead of using a layer, you can go through here and just kind of dial in some detail. There you go. So you got some bark. Now what I was looking for really was something more like this. I got some wood stuff in here. Hey, okay. And these are VDMs. Could have sworn I had... Yeah, these are just basically wood sculptured, captured on a vector displacement alpha, which you can look up if you're so inclined. So that'll give you a nice stylized look. I really want those alphas though. I'm trying to think why I wouldn't have them in there. Stylized wood, duh. Okay, so again, I got these off ArtStation. Just look up wood alphas, I suppose. Sorry, I don't have the link. You can just grab any of these. So we can go through here and we can just, double click, again, one of these alphas. Let's switch back to our standard brush clone. So hit B, standard brush. So if I double click, say wood 10, that's unfortunately going to throw it in the texture, but that's an easy fix. We'll say texture, make alpha, get rid of the texture. So now it's in the alpha. Hold down control, throw that in there. So now if I drag this out, we can say, you know what, let's unmask everything. I'm going to drag this. This is going to go, if you're masking anything, it will go all the way through the object, which in this case I really don't care about. If you did care about it, one way to not do that is Control Shift and then hold down Alt and do a visibility. Get rid of that visibility, and then when you drag through, it will leave it alone. So you can go through here and we can pop this alpha in here. We can invert that. We can go through here to our deformation menu and we can say inflate, I think. So we can inflate out a little bit and kind of have that bark kind of look, or I suppose we could invert that mask and inflate in. We can just kind of mask lines all the way through here, and then this mask up here, we're just going to say, we'll swap this alpha out. We'll mask that top and bottom. And again, you could go through and just drag. Okay, mask it all. Let's see. Put that back in here. Control Shift Tap just to isolate this. I'll get it. Okay, so we'll isolate by that poly group. I'm going to mask all the way through because I really don't care that much. It's not a huge deal. We'll go through here and we'll just kind of, we'll fatten this one up, give it some variety. I think that'll work fine. Control Tap to invert this. Control Shift Tap to bring everything else back. Control Tap to invert again. Is that going to work? No. We got to go back in and mask that little bottom section there. There we go. And you know what? Let's go in here. I'm going to get rid of that little mask right there. Okay. And then now we can go through here and we can do like a little deflate through here, unmask. And then again, you know what, before we even unmask, we can go in here and we can adjust last. So we can go through here and we can say, I want to dial this in or I want to invert it. You can just adjust that last one. We do have history stored though. So if you want to control tap again to get rid of history. Now it will just adjust the last thing we did, which we have to go in here and we'll deflate first, and then we'll say adjust that deflate. Something like that. And then you can use this as a starting point. Another thing we could try is let's kind of rough this up a little bit. So standard brush will go back to dot stroke. Let's grab an alpha 60. And we'll turn on stroke, lazy mouse, modifiers, roll distance of 1. We'll kind of roll this through. Let's go in here to alpha invert. So you can kind of go through here and you can kind of just start plumping this thing up for bake. And again, while we're doing this, let's go ahead and control tap this point in history so we can go back through if we wanted to. And we'll use some, actually I have some ZBrush guides wood brushes that I think will really knock this out. But we'll just talk about general stuff for now. So again, we have that point stored in history, so we can go through here and we can adjust last. We can kind of dig this in a lot, dig it in not so much. And then if we kind of want to round these out, usually what I'll do is I'll over crank how much it's affecting the mesh. Go in here to shift smooth, switch this over to smooth peaks. That'll leave our valleys alone, and that'll kind of round out those top parts here. So now we've got kind of some bark lines that we can go through and play around with. If we want to detail these up, you can go in here to like H tiles. We can crank that up. So basically what we're doing is we're tiling horizontally our alpha. If I do an invert, we might be able to see that a little easier. V tiles is vertical, obviously. H tiles is just horizontal. Kind of looking a little bit weird. Okay, there we go. So you can kind of see that. So we'll set this to like 4. And then we can go through here, hold down Alt. And this will just kind of give you a little bit of, I don't know, wood detail. And again, if we wanted to, it's a lot better if you were to do this on one layer and then add another layer and then do this detail, then you'll have access to both of them. If you're super lazy like me, just control tap that point in history before you start moving and grooving. Let's go ahead and drop that Z intensity down. Let's do 3 tiles maybe. Does surface make any difference on this one? This one I don't really care about surface that one much, but it seems to be working okay. There we go. So we're just kind of up, down here, just kind of give it some direction. And there, we got some wood detail. We haven't done the tap caps yet, but I think we can do that pretty easily, I think. Yeah, and then we can just do an adjust last on just the detail-y parts. Yeah, just kind of dial that in a little bit. That's fine. For the top, luckily, when we made a cylinder, what we should be able to do, I think, is go in here to transform. Everybody cross your fingers. Activate symmetry in the Y direction. If we look at our floor, Z is forward, X is side to side, and then there's a little green line. That's Y is up. So we're going to say activate symmetry in the Y, and we're going to turn on radial count. So right now we just have 8. Let's Z add. There we go. So now we just have 8, so we can crank this all the way up to like 100, and now we can very easily just kind of go through here and just start doing rings. What's the best brush for rings? Oh, also alpha. Let's go ahead and H tiles back to 1. There's a rake brush, B-R-A, rake. And in fact, for our radial count, let's drop that down to like, we don't need 100. If I had a steadier hand, you can actually turn on lazy mouse here just by tapping L. So you can go through, excuse me, let's turn on Alt. You can go through here and you can just start like sculpting in concentric rings if you wanted to. If you didn't have, let's say you didn't have radial symmetry, you could, there's a couple things you could do. You can make guides. So if we go out of edit mode, hit Control N to clear a canvas. Let's go in here. We'll make it, grab another cylinder, edit, make Polymesh 3D, group by normals, Control Shift tap that top cap, geometry modify topology, delete hidden, insert multiple edge loops. We'll turn off interactive elevation. We're going to say alternate poly group. So we can go through here and we can kind of pull some rings through. Let's turn off our floor here. And then our Z modeler brush, inset polygroup all legacy. We can kind of inset one of these, Q mesh polygroup all with our Z modeler brush. Hold down Shift and pull that down. Hit D for dynamic. We could hit crease PG maybe. Crease level of 1, smooth sensitive of 2. It looks a little hokey. I don't know that it would really hold up, but since we've already done it, let's go in here to, it made sense in my head, but I don't know. We'll say from mesh, we'll back this off just a little bit here. We'll zoom out just a tiny bit. We'll crank this up to 2048. We'll say grab it, And then now, if I switch back to our cloned standard brush that we're abusing, drag rect, 3D alpha, go back here, and then you could, oops, let's turn off radial symmetry, and we'll just look at the middle here. You could use this, turn focal shift down to -100. You could kind of use this as a guide. Ooh, boy, that's messing with my eyes. You can go through here, and again, we'll just do an adjust last. You can kind of use this as a little bit of a, I mean, you could dial it in. Let's go do this. You won't have this available immediately, but if you go in here to brush, BT trim, is it a trim brush? Trim smooth border, yes. So trim, there is a trim smooth border brush in here. I have it auto loaded, so I can go to BTT, put in a square alpha, and we can use this to kind of just hold down Alt and then let go of Alt, and you can just kind of use this to knock back. It's kind of tap, and you can kind of, I don't know, have some rings going on an arbitrary plane. And then go in here again with, I don't know, maybe a rake brush or maybe just a standard brush, and just go in here and brush reset current. There we go. And this uses this alpha to kind of go through and rake. So you can kind of use this. You could also use, I suppose, like Z modeler and array mesh, but that seems like overkill. If you want to use kind of a photogrammetry thing where you go out and you do photogrammetry, I'm not going to bring in anything like that, but we do have access to, for now, I think this is, they're changing this later. We can go in here to the bridge. And in fact, if you want to see, because I'm not going to be positive that I'm going to do this 100% correct. Come on. If we do a search for, oh, there it is right there, Mega Scan. But for y'all, do a search for Mega Scan. You can get the full resolution mesh here. We'll say copy link address. You can check that out. We can download, what are we looking for? 3D plants? Weed. Yeah, weed. Climber, no. I'm looking for 3D assets, nature, tree. Yes. Stump, trunk. I guess a stump, right? Yeah. All right. These ones are kind of burnt. You know what? Let's go trunk. No, log. Did I just see one? No. Yep, log. Of course. Old wooden log. I already have this one. Perfect. So all you would need to do is go in here and say download. It'll download for you. You can go in here to your download settings, and if you scroll all the way down underneath models, you'll see the extras has a source Z tool. So click download. And again, if you're watching this in the future, I don't know that you're going to be able to do this. I think it'll be under Fab or something. They're discontinuing the Quixel Bridge, I think. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. So you can download this. And then if I go to, actually, beach tree. Hold on. Assets, nature. I hate when Windows does that, where you shake a window and then everything disappears like it's a feature. Ugh. Okay, it's ready now. Nature, tree, log. If I want to find this, there, go to files. There it is. So in here, I'm going to grab the 8K albedo and the WikJBD Z tool, and we're going to load those in. So let's go out of edit mode here. Control N. I'm going to say load tool here, and then paste. Copy these in. So we'll go ahead and load this up. So now, if we want to steal, if we want to borrow, if we want to be inspired by, do an homage to scan data. So this one has, yeah, that one's got little cut lines in there too. Now I want the color map as well, so we got to go grab that. So texture import, and instead of using this as a reference image, we're going to load up that texture here. There's one thing we need to do: select that and do a flip vertical on that texture. It's an 8K texture, so give it a second. Get it, get it. There we go. And then we'll go down here to texture map, and we'll plug that in, and we'll switch our skin shader. So look at that. Now we've got a nice log that we can borrow things from. So for example, if we wanted to use this as our bark, easiest way, I think, to just grab height and color information, and I think I don't think we need to convert it. If you want to convert your texture map to a poly paint, all you got to do is go in here to poly paint, say poly paint from texture, and that'll transfer. Fine, RGB, poly paint from texture. That'll transfer our texture map to the actual poly paint. You know what? Let's go in here to flat color. Yeah, so now we can, let's do this. Let's do BX extractor, BXT. And on this one, you're going to see, is it under, sorry, it's been a while. Again, if I'm ever going over something, you're like, what the hell? Just extract, really? OR? There we go. There's a bunch of extractor stuff you can check out from ZBrush 2020. Having said that, brush, it's a tablet, alpha and texture, brush, alpha and texture. No, I know what the hotkey is. I'm just looking for the menu button. It's G. There it is. Okay, from brush right there. I was looking at me right in the eye. So alpha from brush. You can hit G on your keyboard. So we'll make our brush size, whatever size makes sense. We can tap G on our keyboard. That puts it into this mode. And I'm just going to drag over this, and we're going to get texture and height information. One thing I should have done is control tap the latest point in history. I think it'll grab everything I need, but we'll see. So what that's doing is giving us basically a brush with texture information and height information. So if we go back to our log, boy, I got a lot of logs in here. I guess this one, right? So we'll scroll back in our history before we had anything. Again, Control Shift tap this poly group here, nice and easy, and then we can use this to kind of paint through. If we turn on Colorize and turn on RGB with our Z-add, we should be able to paint with a texture map along with our height changes. You're going to see A is turned off. If A is turned on, then any dark areas in your alpha, it's not going to show any color, so make sure you have that turned off. And let's also go in here to stroke. Roll's already turned on. How about that? So there you go. So now we can go through here and we can just kind of roll. Now, before I do this, probably what I would do is maybe just grab like a dark brown. So over here in our color, just a dark desaturated brown. Bring everything else back. Go ahead and color fill object with that dark brown color. And then now when we brush on, you won't have any just white showing through. So here, we'll go this way, and then we'll go this way. Oh, let's also, so here, let's change skin shader 4. Whistle yourself a little song. Oh, we didn't talk about doing the end caps either. We can probably steal an end cap. Yeah, we'll grab this one. Little bark. Now, one thing we didn't consider is if we wanted to separate the bark out from the rest of the mesh. We could still do that. Okay, so we've got our bark here, and now I want to do the top. If I just want to sculpt, I'm going to turn off Colorize temporarily. We'll go back here. So there's like splits on the end, and there's the concentric rings. You know what? I guess I would just go in here, maybe to clay brush. with this alpha with radial symmetry in the Y direction, low Z intensity. Maybe not that low. Man, I'm making like this is a sweater or something. All right, you can do this, Mike. Let's switch out. Let's try standard brush. I guess that's what the rake brush is, right? Probably. Brush, reset current. There we go. See intensity down. And again, I could just do adjust last. So control tap this point in history, and then we'll go through here and we'll do, all right, I need 100. Transform, radial count. There we go. Then again, BTT for trim smooth border. Adjust last. We'll kind of knock that back a little bit. And then I'm going to say control tap this point in history twice, get rid of it. And we got that. I'm going to turn off radial symmetry and the Y symmetry. And we'll just go through here. We'll just kind of, again, rough this up. And we could go in and paint it. I will show you how to take from the scan data to get this cap on there. Yeah, okay, I guess that'll work. And then also brush slash. So let's go in here to our comma key, brush. I think the /01 is going to be our best bet for this one. /1. And we'll kind of go from the middle out. And that'll kind of give us kind of nice splits. And if you were feeling it, you could actually match this up with, you know, whatever details you had. I mean, I guess that's a little too on the nose. Here, here, and here maybe. And then what else would we want? Maybe clay buildup, clay tubes or whatever, and go through here and, you know, detail this out. Now, having said all that, if we wanted to continue our scan data escapades, there's a couple ways. So we did, when we were over here, we did the extractor. Another thing you could do is we could grab height and color information with MRGB ZGrabber. So we can go out of edit mode. We can go in here just to drop it to our canvas. We can go in here to MRGB ZGrabber. We'll use our space bar to move this around, use shift to make it into a square. And then when we grab this, it'll grab height data and color. Now you're going to see it kind of fades at that top a little bit. It's because it's a rounded object. What you could do, if you were so inclined, let's hit Control N to clear a canvas. We'll drag that, go out of this mode. Let's go back to our scan data here. This thing does have UVs, so you could go in here to UV map, morph UV, and flatten it out. Wait for it. It's a big mesh. 15 million polygons. There we go. Hit F to frame. And there we go. So now we have nice caps here that we could grab, as well as this here. So now again, if we go out of edit mode and to drop it, and we go back in here to MRGB ZGrabber, and then when we grab, the height should be a little bit more uniform. However, it's kind of got a high pass look. I don't know that it's going to end up working that great, but we can try. Let's hit Control N, clear our canvas, go back here, and go back in here to UV map, and we'll say morph UV back. We'll go back to our log here, and then with this, if we were to say go back to our standard brush we're using, swap out that depth grab, swap out that texture, and again A off, Z add RGB, drag this out. Let's take that focal shift down to 0 so we can kind of soften that edge out. There we go. So now you can drag on height and color information from that UV thing. Again, I don't know that the height's that great, but you could go in here to adjust last and, I don't know, kind of play with that, see if you can get something worthwhile out of it. Now, so we can use MRGBG grabber, we can use extractor. If you wanted to use extractor on this entire end piece here, you can go in here to BX and use extract dot, and then you can just pull that out. What I'm going to try to do, is to transfer this using history. So let's, you know what, I'm going to duplicate this off. I'm going to hold down Control Shift. We're going to grab select rectangle, and I'm just going to grab, let's make this straight. So I'm going to hold down Shift and then start. So if you just rotate or just use your camera angle to kind of get it this way, you can kind of make this flat against the side, but you can see this is just off. So the trick is hold down, start moving your model, and then hold down Shift and then let go. Let me see if I can do it. Shift and then let go of Shift, and then you can rotate on that axis there. So that way we can straighten out. There we go. Boop. So that's nice and straight. Control Shift. I'm just going to grab this little end right here. Say Geometry, Modify Topology, Delete Hidden, Delete Lower, Delete Hidden. It's pretty heavy. I don't know if I'd make an insert mesh brush out of that. So what I'm going to do instead is hop back over here to our log. We'll say Append this little bit here, and we can't see both sides, so you can go down here too if you wanted to temporarily. Display properties double, just so you can see it a little bit better. We can hit W, Alt tap there, and now we just need to go in here and line this up. Now we don't need to Dynamesh it together. What I'm going to do, since we have subdivision history and nice geometry, I don't want to have to resort back to Dynamesh, but what I think I can do is fit this on here and then transfer that data to our other mesh. So we'll say, okay, here's the top that I like. We'll go ahead and scale this in. Again, we can hold down Alt, kind of scale on that axis here. We can even go in here to our move brush, kind of move it into place. It's kind of using like the warp tool in Photoshop. If you want to move on an axis, you can hold down Alt. You can kind of pull up through along the normal. So I'm kind of just pulling that right up into my log. And again, we can scooch this out. There we go. So now the top here will be nice and log-like. Now, again, I want to transfer this to our log. So what I'm going to do with that subtool selected, I'm going to Control tap the latest point in history to store that. We can turn that off. And then I go back to my log. We're going to do BHR, history recall. RGB is on. Z-add is on. And don't have symmetry on. I had symmetry on, but nothing was activated. So X to turn off symmetry. And now what we can do is we can go through here, and it's camera based, so just kind of look straight down. We can go through here and we can transfer. Let's crank up our RGB intensity to 100. So now we're going through and we're painting height information. And again, if you wanted to protect this top, you can Control tap or W, Control tap this polygroup here, and that'll just stop it right there. So now we're transferring height and color info from our scan data onto our log, onto our new geometry, etc., etc. And there we go. Yeah, that'll work. And then for this one, this little baby one over here, maybe we do just go grab something off of here. So we're going to say, or we can even go back to the original. If we want, we can get rid of this one. Okay. And then on this one here, we'll use our extractor, that extractor dot. So extract or extract drag rect. We'll choose that. And then we'll just kind of pull, hit G, pull and drag, and that'll capture that height and color information from that spot. And then instead of rolling it along, we can drag rect it on, which will be great for this one. So we can just go to this cap here and just be like, whoop, and get that on there, and then Control Shift tap this one. We'll go back to our standard brush. We'll swap out, actually, BX. We go back to our extractor brush that has that already loaded in there. Our bark loaded in there. So you don't want to mask this, invert it. If we want to compare it with our pre-existing bark, we can always go down here to Mask. Oh, my wife did bring me coffee. That's what I really needed. I won't chew ice into the mic. Okay, so we're going to turn off view mask. And then now it's still masking, but now I don't have to see it. And I can go through here and I can evaluate this surface with the surfaces around it. Dum, 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 dum. There we go. So that's one way. You could make a little log. And let's do this. So Shift Z, we'll use our arrow key. Oh, look at that. Dun, 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 dun. Z. Cool. All right. Haven't looked over here in a while. Just give me a second. Yeah, 2025 iPad functionality. XMD, good point. So under here, file, there's Open XMZ Toolbox. Oh, I don't have it installed. I have a whole thing. Let me see. XMD. How do I log in? Log in. Anyway, you could go in here. Absolutely. They have, good point. They have brush. I'm sure they have tons of wood stuff in there. Let me see. Release notes, document quick setup by my account, my downloads. Windows installer. Okay. Do I want to install it now? Let's talk about a few more things. Another thing. Well, let me get to the rest of these. For something like this, the reason to hand sculpt versus using Painter to add bark as texture. That's the other thing. The reason I'm doing it is, number one, if I wanted to like 3D print this, it's on the geometry. Number two, this is on Maxon's channel, so I try not to go into Substance Painter or character creator stuff too much. But to your point, that's also an excellent way to get textures on there. I'm trying to think if I do have a Substance Painter quick start guide, but if you wanted to say like, I got a couple examples on here on my playlist. One really simple example is like this, this speed modeling and texturing for a rifle, where we basically just go through here, make a really quick rifle, decimate it down, throw it in the Substance Painter, drag, so you can see right here, drag and drop wood grain onto your object. Before you did that, we can, let's do it just a little bit. Let's make this texture friendly. So what we can do is we have poly groups on here, and we also have very useful subdivision history. So if we wanted to go through and bake this thing out, all I would need to do is, stay on subdivision level 5. We can go in here. Let's close all this stuff down. Let's go in here to Z plugin and UV master, and we could say it's not symmetric, but we do have polygroups on here. We can hit unwrap. Oh yeah, that's right. We can go in here to work on clone. That'll dump my subdivision history, and we just have the lowest here. We can say unwrap with polygroups here, and then we hit flatten. Here's our UVs. If you want to, you can control tap any of these polygroups, and you can say, hey, you know what, I want this to be here, I want this one to be here, and this one to be here, and this one to be here. I'm just control tapping these here. So it basically just whatever geometry tools you want to use to modify these, go for it. And then when you go out of unflatten, and then you go back into flatten, it'll reset it to the 0 to 1 space. So we'll say unflatten. We now have UVs. So at this point, if I was so inclined, even in ZBrush, we got to copy our UVs, and then we got to go back to our mesh here, and we're going to say paste our UVs. So if we want to transfer our poly paint to a texture map, all we got to do is go in here to texture map, and we can say create new from poly paint. There we go. So it'll transfer that. Then of course you'd have to clone that off and then texture export. You could even go in here to your normal map. Here, I think we need to drop down to like subdivision level 1. And then we can say normal map, tangent space. If you want to flip your grain, smooth UVs, create. There we go. So you can create a normal map if you're so inclined, and then also underneath the Z plugin as well, there's the multi-map export her here. You can go through and you can bake out displacement, vector displacement, normal, texture, ambient occlusion, all that good stuff. Now, let's turn that off and turn that off and go back up and turn that off. So at this point, if you wanted to bake this, what you've done out, you would export the high res, export your low res, and then bake that in Subspanner. If you wanted to just, dump this out, just your low res, and then add, go through here and put on your bark, and then, because they do have textures for this type of thing too, then you could just export this out with your UVs, although it does have auto UVs in there. Open up Subspanner, import that as a new file project, have it auto UV it for you, or use your UV master UVs, and then just drag and drop materials under your UVs, planar projection or triplanar projection or whatever you want to do to put bark on there. Excellent. All excellent ideas. Yes. Let's see here. We will see more tutorials on sci-fi design like cyborgs and aliens. Not on this stream, unless I might be lying, because we could do this one. Little glass hat here. But, I mean, if you wanted to, if you want, like, I don't know if I have a ton of cyborgs in it. I mean, so, for example, if you want to make an ultramarine, you can click on here and then scroll down, and you'll see like a little time lapse of me making the ultramarine. If you want to see the live streams of me making this ultramarine, you can go through here, and they're all on here. So if there's any sci-fi or creature stuff, hard surface is kind of sci-fi. It's like 1950s sci-fi. You can go through here and you can watch those live streams, and that'll give you a bunch of techniques for. There's this one too. Little sci-fi. I think I got some, and this one's old, so. Mileage may vary, but you can check those out. Cool. Thanks, John Yu, for stopping by. Have a good rest of your day and week. Yes, do everything by hand. Working clone. Okay, so question. When I used, wait, did I miss one? We had part of a slinky, but then I straightened it. Hello, when I use work on clone, the material and color change. Is there a way to avoid this? Oh, yeah. So when you go to work on clone, I think it automatically swaps out your skin shader 4 and then changes it to a material of white. I don't know how to stop it from doing that, but you can always change it back. So we're on this subdivision level 5. If we do go in here and we say UV master, work on clone, yeah, it swaps out. You can just swap out the material if you want and then make it whatever color you want. But basically it turns on colorize for you. So if you don't like that, you can turn colorize off on. This is just a preview, So just turn colorize off, make it whatever color you want, make it whatever material that you want, and continue UVing. But yeah, you're right. It does do that automatically. I forgot about that. Doing iPad videos or streams. iPad looks like a toy watching you use so many unimplemented features of desktop ZBrush. Yeah, I do. I am. What I was hoping was what I would be able to do is the next big release. I'd be able to do like, hey, intro to ZBrush for both. Intro to ZBrush for desktop, intro to ZBrush for iPad, and then I would basically just do intro to ZBrush for desktop, and then whenever the iPad is kind of different, I'll kind of do a setup for iPad, a setup for desktop, and then as we go through, just if anything's different on the iPad, call it out. But for me, as far as like iPad use, it's kind of limited. I mean, I realize I'm not everybody, but basically I'm trying to think, it's just another Apple product that I have that's just going to gather dust, just the way my life is. But I do want to do that for sure. But as far as like me using it a lot, probably I could be lying. Once I get it, I might be like, oh my God, this is amazing. But like the only thing I can think of using it for realistically is like sitting on the couch or flying somewhere or sitting at the DMV and kind of playing with ZBrush, which is fine. But if I'm sitting on the couch after sitting in my seat for 12, 16 hours a day game developing, the last thing I want to do is have another computer in front of my face. But like I said, I could change my mind. We'll see. But I need to get into that. Have you, Johnny? Have you found good use of ZBrush instances tool? What is that? The like the array mesh or the nano mesh stuff, or oh, repeat the similar parts. Yeah, they're. Yeah, you know what? Now that you mention it, it's one of those things I always forget's there. But it is really cool. So basically, anybody stopping by to similar, it's this right here. So basically, if you have like an array mesh of objects and you want to change one object, you can go through. And again, if it's not, you can use array mesh and you have an instance, and then let's talk about it. So for instance, if we have a cube here, and we'll say make polymesh 3D, and we'll scale this down into kind of a brick shape, let's say, and I don't want this geometry, I want it to be a little more regular. So zero mesh half, tap size down to 0, detect edges. That'll go through and give us nice geometry on all the corners. So now I can go through here and we can say, you can use array mesh as an instancing. So we can say array mesh. I guess we can just make a wall. So trying to remember what I did in the original one. I just bent it around, right? Anyway, we can go through here and we can say, give us our repeats. And you know what I like to use? I like to say transpose, lock position, lock size, hit W, hit Y, and then I can actually use my transpose line to say, you know what? Let's move this out. However many, I did a lot of repeats. Sorry about that. You can use move, scale, and rotate on your transpose line. Jeez, how many repeats did I do? 24? There we go. So we can go through here and we can do repeats like this. And then if I want to, I can add another one. We can say append new, and then I can go in here to my transpose line and we can move this, get that out of the way. There we go. We can use this and then say, how many times do I want to repeat that? Maybe 5, and then move this down. And you'll see, because I have polyframe on, this one here, for everybody that doesn't know what an instance is, you can go through here and now I can modify this brick to update all the rest of these bricks. However, if I turn array mesh off and I say W, let's hit Y, let's control drag this and go, and then go to middle, and then we can say bend arc, and we'll say, and we'll turn that radius down, just there we go. And then we'll hit W and we'll say control drag up, and we'll rotate this from the middle, let's say 45 degrees. Is that mathematically good? And then control drag this up and we'll say, there we go. So now we've got a brick thing here. And we can say, you know what, we got our creases. We'll say crease level of 1, smooth surface of 2. Oh, look at that. Nice bricks. Now, repeat to similar. Once you get to that point, here, I'll link you to this. Copy link address, because I'm just trying to remember like what I did. And this is one of those videos, I don't use it very often, so I would have to go back in and remind myself. But I feel like, let's control click this point in history. I think pop quiz hot shot, repeat the similar parts. A lot of options in here. If I move this one and apply to similar, repeat the similar only supports one mesh at a time, right? Requires undo history, right? Okay, so I'm starting to remember. And then if I just make a modification to 1, there we go. So now I made a modification to 1, and then it updated the rest of them. So if I go through here and I make a modification to this, and I apply to similar, you know what? Let's do this. There's another, if you control drag, I have control shift. Wait, control alt G. Nope, cancel. Control shift. I don't have it. There's a new function in masking, not that new, but it's there. I need to assign a hotkey to it. Masking. There is a grow mask. Grow all mask. So control alt tap. I'm going to do control alt shift G for grow all mask. So now if I just grab a little piece of this and control alt shift G, I can mask and invert. So now I can be very careful that I'm only changing one, and then I can say, oh my god. Yeah. And I lost it. And again, if this is something I used all the time, I'd probably put it in here. I'd put it in my interface. Or I would remember where it was. That would be the most important part. Repeat the similar parts. Let's see. Why is it not letting me? I guess store this point in history and then update. There we go. There we go. Cool. So anyway, again, these aren't instances necessarily, but ZBrush is seeing that they all have the same geometry and is treating them, is updating all of them like they were instances. I mean, I think it's totally cool. I just don't work on stuff. I guess if I did more environment stuff, I'd probably use that a lot more. But I ain't much of an artist, much less environment artist, so you know. Let's see here. We'll use a Sketchboard Pro for iPad. I don't know what that is. Sure, I'll probably whatever's the best. Whatever I need to get in order to run ZBrush on it, whatever that is. When are you releasing ZBrush for iPad stuff? I don't know. When I get around to it, it's definitely not on my list of priorities. But maybe when the new desktop stuff, if new desktop stuff comes out, I might swing back around and be like, here's how you use iPad. Solid STL before 3D printing. Use ZBrush. Yeah, so if I wanted to 3D print this and make sure that it was all solid and everything, you know, if I had a bunch of subtools and I merged them all together, basically what I would do is I would say append a cube 3D, grab that cube, go in here, scale this out, and you know what, we can turn off poly paint and we can just go to whatever material. Hit W, turn on live boolean, set this as subtractive, and then as I push this cube in, I'm looking for gaps, you know, so you basically just, you would merge everything together, probably remesh by union to make it all one solid piece, and then just ensure that everything is nice and solid. There's no holes or gaps or anything in here. And when I'm hollowing, I could hollow in here. I usually hollow in like Lychee Slicer. Hey, good morning. Yes, you know, trying to stay up to date with all the new stuff in ZBrush too is, you know, I've got a start on it and then all the ZBrush what's new stuff. But yeah, I'm due for another update. Yeah, so we got this. Another thing we could talk about, and I'm not super well versed in it, so you're going to see me struggle a little more. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, let's copy tool and then paste tool. So oh no, don't copy and paste tool. What I was going to do is go through ZBrush Guide's wood brushes, because I think those are good too, but I just haven't used them a lot. I'll start up ZBrush there. I know. Hit the comma key, go to quick save. We'll grab that latest one here. There we go. So we've got this. Let's go ahead and let's duplicate this off. And let's go down to subdivision level 1. We'll say delete higher. I'm going to do a polish by feature open circle. What that'll basically do is keep any creases or polygroup borders steady, and then it'll just polish everything in between them. I'll just kind of clean this up a little bit for just kind of a nice base, and then we can go through here and we can start subdividing again. So again, we can do like crease level of 1, smooth subdiv of 2, apply, hit Control D a couple times, and now we can start sculpting on this. So if I go into my comma key, brush, wood. This is the ZBrush Guides wood stuff. So for that top one, we can just do like a quick, you know, just grab one of these, Control Shift Tap, go through here and just pull this on. Boom, done. If I want some bark, and again, go and get this pack and let me see. Bark and wood brushes pack. There you go. I'll copy that link for you. You can get this pack. It's got some tutorial videos, and you can just go in and kind of play with it. Hickory ash. Let me see. There we go. So we can just isolate this if we want to. We can mask and invert it. And go through here, and we can just literally just drag bark. Then you can go through there. And in this, if you're going to do it this way and you wanted to paint, definitely like masking by, let's see what else we got on here. I think there's some like layer stuff in here. It's for digging. Bark, bark, bark. There's a drag. There you go. So if you just want to kind of drag rect instead of brushing, you can go through here and just kind of use this to break it up. So a lot of cool brushes to go through here, and you can overlay them, go back in on top of them and kind of mix and match details and stuff like that. But you get the idea, right? You get it. Like so. Now, if we're doing something cartoony, so for example, we were in here and we were doing like, what was it? Brush slash, which we don't have loaded anymore. Great. Elemental PQRS /1. You can go through here and you can kind of carry this on through, you know, kind of, this would be more like realistic wood, right? You have a top piece and then you have some bark, and the bark's kind of flaking off, but the underneath piece is all wood. So you can kind of tell that story. However, if we're doing something cartoony where we wanted like the wood or the bark to be on a separate piece, what we could do, if we go all the way back here to the beginning on this one, there we go. What we could do is we could say, okay, all the bark pieces here, you and you, are going to be split into, it's under your split menu here. That's going to be split into your own, into its own subtool here. Let's go ahead and get rid of this one. There we go. So now we have these two split. If I want to add some thickness to this, I would probably use my ZBrush brush, BZM, hover over a face. You could say, let's do extrude. If we do QMesh, the only reason I'm going to do like QMesh all polygons, or extrude all polygons, if I do QMesh, sometimes when things get tight, QMesh will start sticking polygons together, which I don't want. So to avoid that, I'll go in here to extrude all polygons, and I'll extrude this back, and this will give us thickness, and then it's inverted normal. So we got to go back down here to display properties, turn on, hit flip, and then this will look correct. And so now this will be like our bark area. However, this one might be a little thicker visually than this one. So what I can do is, let's go in here. I'm going to hold down Alt. I'm going to paint right along here. And then I'm going to isolate just that, hit Control W. And then if I isolate just the purple ones, we can say Polygroup Auto Group. So now this is its own polygroup. We'll go ahead and make this its own polygroup. So now I can go to this polygroup here. We'll say Extrude Polygroup All, and then just hold down Shift. And that'll just push along those surface normals to kind of thin that out. Yeah, there we go. So now we got our caps to worry about. You could close holes with a, I don't worry about that, but I like this cap because it's nice. It's sculptable. It's got quads on it. So I think we're in good shape. However, I do need to shrink this in a little bit. I can hit W. We'll go to unmesh. Well, let's split this off. You can see these are all 3 different polygroups. So we could, there's a couple different ways we could do this. We can go down here to split by group split. That's polygroup split, or you can do split the parts. So all the different non-attached parts will split. Doesn't really matter. We'll say split the parts. Okay. So now these all get their own subtool. So now I can Alt tap this one. And again, if we want to shrink this down, we can say go to Unmesh Mesh Center. We can hold down Alt and just kind of, in this case, you can actually do a uniform scale since it's flat. Just kind of pull that in a little bit. Or I guess what you could do, let's not overcomplicate things. There's a million ways you could do that, but we'll stick with this one for now. So we'll kind of scale this in a little bit. And then of course, we probably want this to have some sort of thickness. So I'll say Extrude Polygroup All, and we'll just pull this down. And again, display properties flip. We'll do a crease PG, crease level of 1, smooth side div of 2. Same thing for this, crease level of 1, smooth side div of 2. And now we've got bark, and now we've got this one. And again, with this polygroup here, you can just hold down Alt and kind of scale along here to kind of get that to fit. Or I suppose what you also could do is under your Z modeler brush, hover over a face, extrude polygroup all, and then just hold down Shift, and that'll pull along that surface normal. There you go. So now those are all split out. Let's go ahead and just do it for this too. We'll say extrude, flip, W, scale, D for dynamic, crease level of 1, smooth side div of 2. And this bottom one here, I suppose, sure, whatever. Boing. Flip. Crease 2, 3, 1, 2. There. So now we got kind of a little bit more cartoony look, and this will allow us to. And again, if we want to go ahead and just very quickly just start detailing this up, we talked about the stylized stuff, so I'm not too worried about it. I'm just going to go into ZBrush guide stuff because it's simple. You've seen all the other techniques. I'm not going to overthink it. Not that I really could if I wanted to. So now you're going to see it looks smooth, like there's a lot of geometry. When I sculpt on it, it doesn't look very good. That's because, again, we have dynamic turned on. That's just a preview. So Shift D to turn it off, D to turn it back on. If we want it to be real geometry, dynamic apply. It's only 38,000 points. Maybe hit Control D a couple times, and now we've got enough resolution to kind of support that. So now, you know, top, bottom, or if you want to, again, dynamic apply, subdivide, maybe grab. Maybe grab another one here. Look at that. In fact, I like that one here. Bling. And then again, we'll go back into that bark. Dynamic apply. I'll remember one of these days. Now, here's something you do need to think about is when we're using a big old brush, it might, this one doesn't, but if we go back here to our backface masking, for example, our clay buildup, for example, and we go through here and we start pulling through, it's going to pull through the object. So just something to be aware of. You want to go in here to brush auto masking, turn on backface mask. You're going to see it's here in my custom interface. If you need to know where your custom stuff is, like we were talking about, if you go here to home, intro to ZBrush, what's new, and you just do a search for custom. There's custom brushes. Hey, custom interface and menus. Video 42 in the intro to ZBrush will get you information on how to set that up. So now, again, I can hit Alt F just to turn on backface masking. I don't even to see in here, but it's brush, auto masking, backface masking. So now when I use clay buildup, it'll leave the backside alone. This brush doesn't seem to have that problem here. So we'll go through here. And again, if we want to adjust, let's Control Tap this point in history before we start. And then we'll go through here and we'll do our whole bark extravaganza. Kind of just break this up here. And again, you always remember you're visually storytelling with anything you're doing. So ideally when you're doing this type of thing, you're thinking about like, okay, where is this tree? Has it been laying on one side for too long? Is it building up moss on one side? Like what's the visual story of this tree? And then you go get your reference and then you make good artistic decisions that tell that story effectively to your audience. What I'm doing is just rubbing brushes. But you know what? Sometimes that's what you got to do. This one here. Yeah, so this one's going through. We could turn on backface masking for that, and it won't go through. It might go through the entire object, depending on how big you pull through, but that's fine. I'm just doing quick. Good enough. All right, so now we have I would say cartoony. It's a little more cartoony, but you're going to see it's kind of just allowing you to separate out. Now, these caps, which you could have done too, is just have a solid cylinder in here, especially if you wanted to eventually like 3D print this or something. You probably don't want to have two end caps. What you could do, let's try this. Let's get fancy. Oh, that's dynamic apply, whatever. So these two here, this cylinder here, I'm going to shift bent down arrows, shoot at the bottom, alt tap. This one, shift bent down arrow, wait, alt tap this one. There we go. So now these two end caps are on the bottom here. Let's go out of solo mode. Goodness. There we go. So these two end caps, what I'm basically going to do, There's a couple different ways we could do this. If I want to replace these two end caps with a solid cylinder with just sculpted information on the top and the bottom, what I could do, if these are the same, so here's subdivision level 5, subdivision level 5. So the cool thing about this is if I merge that down, that's under subtool merge down, it will maintain your subdivision levels. So we've got sculpting detail here, but what I could try, it's a quick save. One thing you could do that might work is you can go down here to free subdivision levels. That's going to drop us down to subdivision level 1 and store those high-res points in history. So what I can do now is I'm going to say Control-Shift-Tap this top one, Control-Shift-Tap this bottom one, Control-Shift-Tap to invert that, Geometry Modify Topology Delete Hidden. I'm going to turn on Display Properties Double. It's way down here at the bottom, temporarily. And what I might be able to do is say bridge. It's not a hole. Is there a way to bridge? I don't want to bridge every single edge. Damn. You know what I wanted to do? Think, Mike, think fast. You're live streaming. Okay. What I was hoping I could do is I could very quickly bridge these two things together, but and you know what? I still can. I'm dumb. So here's what I will need to do. I'm going to take the bottom ones out. There we go. So Geometry Modify Topology, Delete Hidden. We're still in free subdivision level. So now that I have two open holes, I can say bridge two holes. I might have been able to do that when it's flat, but maybe not. Here to here. If I don't need all those spans, and now these aren't the exact same cap, so you're going to see it's kind of doing something funky. That's okay. I really don't care about what's going on in the middle here. So now I've bridged those two together. Still have my free subdivision, so if I unfreeze it, it's going to mask the changed parts here that we didn't, the stuff that we didn't really change, and then add that extra geometry here. So now we have one solid piece for our end caps here. We don't have any. What you could also do is just replace this as a cylinder and then use History Project like we did earlier to manually go through and do it, but free subdivisions seem to work fine. I don't know why I'm cleaning this up, but you know, it's the craftsmanship of the crappy live stream work that I do. It's really important. There we go. Beautiful. Nice job, Mike. Okay. Here, here, and here. Okay. Go back. Floating bits. Also, when you're zero meshing too, anything you dynamesh or anything you Boolean, union Boolean. So for instance, if we were doing this again, where it's like, okay, I want to 3D print this. You're like, okay, let's do our test. So I've got our cube here, and I'm going to go in here and turn on live Boolean, and we're going to say subtractive. And as I push this in, this is where you're going to start seeing like this. Oop, oh no. So this is where you need to be really careful. Now you could, like, if you were to union Boolean these together, what you'd have to do is like, you know, go through here. We'll grab this inner one here, and we'll just use move. And you can just kind of use move to kind of boop, 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 close this up, and then go back to our thing here and just push through and look for more gaps and just close them up. Probably what I'd end up doing in this case is, let's undo, let's say delete that, is just go to this middle one here, go to Unmask Mesh Center, hold down Alt, and just scale it out a little bit so it's really pushed against here, and then through the middle, hell, we could even mask and inflate that, right? And then just scale it in. So that way, I mean, it's going to look kind of funky from here, but at least that'll kind of close this off. You can union it. It'll fill in this middle. I don't know, something like that. Yeah, or you could just manually go through here with your clay brush and just knock this back a little bit. So it's fat up here and closing off all your gaps, and then in the middle here, we can knock this back. If that makes sense. There we go. Oh, back to the floating bits. So when you're zero meshing too, if you ever go through here and you're like down here under geometry, zero mesher, and it's like error, zero mesher can't do this. 99 times out of 100, if you Control-Shift drag over a little piece, Control-Shift-A to visibility grow all, and then geometry modify topology delete hidden, that will delete. It'll go through and grab the contiguous mesh, and then any little bits and pieces that are just kind of floating, it'll delete those, and then, because ZRemesher looks at all those little floating pieces and tries to ZRemesh them, and it will fail. Or at least give you a weird result, or it might just error out on you. So that's a really good way to clean up your mesh for ZRemesher 2. Yes, those wood brushes are this pack here. So we'll go ahead and link you to that again. These are the ZBrush guides wood brushes from Pablo Munoz Gomez. What is polymod menu? So this is my custom menu for polymodeling. It just contains a bunch of stuff like ZRemesher and dynamic subdivisions and creasing and just kind of basic polymodeling stuff that I use a lot. I just have that in my custom menu, which is Pav Custom. I have a hotkey assigned to that, so whenever I need it, I have quick access. If that's the one you're talking about. If not, let me know. Bridge 2 holes works on the flat one. Perfect. Excellent. When you're smoothing a surface, how can you stop the smooth to work only on the hard edge of the surface and not smooth over the edge? So we have for instance, let's go into solo mode here. Let's duplicate this off here. Let's delete higher. Okay, so smoothing a surface. So we have a surface, it's kind of bumpy and I want to smooth the surface. How can you stop the smooth to work only on the hard edge of the surface and not smooth? Okay, so you want to smooth like up to a point. So here's something interesting. One thing you can do, let's hit Control D a couple times. And so for instance, if you want to mask up to, so it's when I get to this edge, it kind of bleeds over. What you can do is if you hold down Control while you're doing this, because it's masking, go in here to depth, turn on depth mask, and then take these top and bottom ones, not all the way to 0, but to a very small value. Here. And then now when I get to an edge, it will stop. It will see that edge. It's not perfect. And if I go from the other side, it'll get to that edge and it'll kind of stop. You know, so what it's basically doing is when I hold down Control, it's looking at that depth. So what I'm thinking is if we hold down Shift to smooth, turn on our depth mask, and then we say pull these in. If you smooth, see on when you're smoothing, it's this is behaving more like our smooth brush, like our smooth peaks and our smooth valleys. If you go in here to smooth peaks, smooth valley, smooth alt, smooth. Maybe not. Let me see. Brush, reset current brush. I'm not sure what that would do. What you could do, if you have polygroups, for example, you could just isolate this and then you can smooth right up to that line. And as long as you only have a smooth brush modifiers min connected set to 3, it won't even smooth out. It won't even smooth an open edge. It'll leave that open edge alone. So that's perfect. If you did have min connected set to 1, it will smooth your open edge. But keep that up at 3. Use a polygroup as your mask, basically, and then you can smooth up there. If you didn't have a polygroup, you could do depth masking with your mask up to that edge, invert that mask, and then just smooth up to there. If you did just want to smooth, it involves borders though, because what you could do is you could go in here to masking, and you could say, you know, mask by your groups. So this will just mask your polygroup borders, and then you can like grow that mask, Control Tab to invert that mask, and then you could literally just smooth just the hard edges through here if you wanted to, or invert that, keep those protected, and then smooth up, and it'll just leave those alone. Or you could even go in here to like polish by features, open circle, and just tap that a couple times and leave your edges alone if you wanted to, or deformation smooth or whatever you want. Seemed like there was something else. Masking. Also when you're holding down Shift to smooth, the weighted smooth mode, if you set that to 6, which is group's border, what you can actually do is this will smooth just a polygroup border. So if you wanted to like, hey, I want to leave the rest of this stuff alone, I don't feel like masking, you can just go through here and let's turn the intensity down. You can go through here and it'll just smooth that polygroup border for you. This is good for ZRemesher too. You can go through there and manually smooth it out. If you want to do that bulk though, however, probably the easiest way is mask by features border, Maybe scroll if you want to, control tap to invert that, and then do a polish by feature. Maybe close circle to maintain your volumes, and then you can just smooth all of your group borders like that. But that means you have to have polygroups in order to utilize all that. I hope that made sense. Will there be a ZBrush Summit this year? Maybe, probably, I don't know. Keep your ears peeled. Can you make good cloth in ZBrush? For sure. I don't have, you know what? It's 7:30. Let's start talking about, is there one on here? Okay, this one has some cloth on it. We have a little jock strap and a football. This one might be fun. So let's say delete this one. So we have our log here. This is kind of our scan data log that we were messing around with, which I think will work fine. We have our cartoony log and then our regular log. So here's our log. And if we wanted to put a beard on this log, well, let's do that. Let's go in here to texture import, and we'll go in here and we'll just grab the one where he has his beard. Maybe. Oh, I forgot I'm on this computer. The hard drive sucks. There we go. There we go. Add it here, and we'll scale this up, and we'll turn this down, and we're going to rotate this around. And now this one is lower, so we'd have to make a new log for this. But now you know how to make logs. If you want to, we can turn on perspective, and we can kind of fit this here, and then now we can start thinking about Fibermesh, basically. So let's scale this up like so. And you know what we could duplicate this off, go into solo mode. I'm going to turn on, with my standard brush, you know, it's this BPA, that's your paint brush, which is your standard brush RGB, turn to 100. Go in here to brush, samples, turn on spotlight projection, and you can literally paint your reference on your object here. And I'm just going to use this to kind of tell where my hair needs to go. Now, what we could do too, if we want this to happen on both sides, is turn on X symmetry. So now, something like this. There we go. So now we're going to get the information for both sides here. You know what? I'm just going to kind of eyeball it. That's fine. So let's, we could go in here to render and say fade opacity and kind of fade that down so we can see a little bit better. I like to go in here with a white color, lower RGB color, fill object a couple times, not that many times, and now we can see a little bit better. In fact, let's do this. Let's just do a polish by feature open circle. We can just smooth some of that detail off. We don't need that much resolution. Delete higher. There we go. Because I'm really just using this as a guide for where my beard needs to be, my little, if it would, you know, and we could also do different variations too. So we're going to mask where we want this hair. So if we wanted to do like a 90s Oakley sunglass baseball player, we could, or we could go ahead and add the rest of this. And this one looks like it kind of just cuts back across the top of the head here. So we'll just keep doing that. I'm going to go in here to brush, reset current, because I did that depth masking thing, so you can see it was, oh, another thing too. So you can see here, I can kind of just barely mask, and then I can press really hard. If you just want to mask, which 99% of the time I do want to do, I'm going to hold down Control, go in here to tablet pressure, go in here to RGB intensity, because this is masking, and it uses RGB. Turn that all the way up to the left, and now no matter how soft or how hard, it's always a full mask. So actually, here's another thing too. So this one, we're going to go up around our little log ear here and then around the back. And then instead of filling this in manually, let's go down here to masking. We're going to say analyze region. We're going to mask a little part in here. We're going to say fill region. It'll go ahead and fill that for us. So now we have where our beard wants to be. And let's hold down Control Alt to tap just to make sure everything's filled in rather nicely. Looks good to me. Let's go in here to Fibermesh. Wait for it. Fibermesh. If you just turn on preview, it's going to have default settings. I feel like if I go in here to Lightbox Fibers, that'll pop up Lightbox, which is just the common key on your keyboard. Go in here to Fibers, and I feel like there might be some like just kind of grassy. Let's try fiber 78. I love it. Okay, so now that kind of dialed in some settings for us, and we can go through here and we can change, you know, the length. It's a little bit more chia pet here, and also the gravity. This grass is kind of hanging down. Let's change that gravity here. We could even do an inverted gravity, so it's like straight up. That's a little odd, but we'll just say gravity down just a little bit here. I don't know. I think that just kind of works, and then we can go through here and we can kind of groom it. So if we're happy with this, we can say accept. Let's say no. And then now this is going to be in its own subtool folder. We don't need this one anymore, so we'll just delete it. And now we can just have these two showing. And now we have BG brush groom hair toss, maybe. Let's go into our brushes and we'll say Fibermesh. Front collision tolerance, we'll turn that down to like 10 so we can lay it a little bit flatter. And then now, I mean, not like we're going to comb this for hair, but I mean, I guess you could if you wanted to like put a part in this hair, which you could do. If you go in here to polyframe, you're going to see, since this had a poly group, it's already, it just inherits the poly group that you masked. So this part's already grouped. Great. What you could do is you can Control Shift tap those and then, you know, Control Shift drag here where you want your part, Control W to make that its own poly group. And then you can just, you know, mask and invert that and then go through here and just comb, you know, this over a little bit here if you wanted to, and then invert that mask or isolate just this if you wanted to, and then give that a little part if you're so inclined. You could also, if you wanted to like clump little sections, you can just go through here. Let's turn off line, hold down Control, and you can just mask little areas. If you want to like just mask these ones, invert it, brush groom, I don't know, spike. Go through here and you can kind of spike that together. There you go. And you can just kind of go through and do a little clumping like that. Let's go ahead and just do a quick brush groom. Yeah, hair toss is fine. We'll give them a little bit of a, give it some directionality. And again, not that like chia grass would necessarily be growing like this, but hey, shut up. I don't want to hear it. We'll call it artistic license. That was always my excuse in school. Why does this look so terrible? Because I wanted it to, because I'm an artist. It speaks about, you know, terrible looking things have a place in art too. And that was all my stuff. Okay, so now we got a super cool, let's go ahead and turn on our floor here. Let's do a little BPR render. And I wonder if, you know, let's try this. Let's go in here to render. Redshift render. Redshift. Turn that on. Use default panorama. Yeah, sure. Let's hit that. It's initializing redshift. Catching up. Cool, cool. So many people not using cloth brushes with Dynamics and ZBrush, even though it works pretty well. Actually, yeah, to go back to cloth, if you go to the ZBrush What's New 2021 playlist, it's a monster of a playlist, but there is a ton of cloth in here. So for instance, I'll link you to this. Control F, cloth, switch windows. Cloth. Yeah, there we go. So if you just go through here, yeah, ton, like you can just scroll through and it's a whole bunch of stuff on dynamic properties. And then also too, if you see anything in here like this, the Cooper suit, you know, you can just scroll down and there's you know, I did a live stream on how we made the suit. Any other clothy stuff? This one we used a little bit of cloth, the Oogie Boogie live stream. Probably Avatar Aang, we did a little bit of cloth work. Trying to remember if we had any really cloth heavy characters. I don't do a ton of cloth stuff. Okay. What else? Oh. Beautiful. So good. So we got that. If we did want to use, so this one here, this pleating, we could use, honestly, I probably wouldn't use a ton of cloth, but we could use a little bit of cloth here. This one we could also use Fibermesh. In fact, really quick, let me see here. Let me see. I like to have a little star in my scene here. So if I hold down Shift and shoot that to the top. Sorry. Boy, that doesn't want to work, huh? So basically, if I go in here to transparency and I hit E, I'm going to scale this down. This is kind of like a little name catcher node. We'll then go in here to Tool Save As, and we'll call this Leog. So this is a name catcher as well as I can insert mesh stuff on top of it. So I'm going to turn on X symmetry. I'm going to go in here really quickly. Let's do Sphere 32. If we go to the top, we can just put in a little thing here. We'll say split mass points. I'm going to scale this out and down. Here, we're going to talk a little bit more about Fibermesh. I think you'll like it. Let's go in here to texture import. Oh, so you can see also, I'm glad that happened. There we go. So we see texture, we can't add it to Spotlight. So ZModeler brush and IMM brushes. So we switch over here to standard brush, and then we select that. Now we can add that here. This one we don't really need anymore, so we'll exit out of there. And then this one here. So we got our beard. And again, once you get this thing, let's move this down. Once you get this thing kind of positioned, movie timeline show, we'll set a new dot in here. So again, I can just use my arrow keys to snap that back. So if we move our cylinder back in, hey, look at that. I got that pretty good. We can use this as a basis. Now what I'm going to do, since I think like a raccoon hat is going to be pretty long hair, I'm going to scale this down quite a bit. And then for the tail, I'm going to control drag here. I'm going to squish this like so, and we'll just put a little tail in the back here. So Shift Z, turn that back on, and then we'll move this out so you can kind of see it, and hold down Alt, and we'll kind of scale this up a little bit, scale it down, something like that. And if we wanted to, let's hit W, let's say temporarily. Let's say split, mass points, hit W. We'll go in here to like a bend curve. We'll add a little bit of resolution in here, and we can even use this to kind of go through here and kind of shape this. If you want to add more resolution, you can just pull down here, and you can go through here, and you can move, scale, rotate, or move, twist, move, scale. We can scale this down. Here we can twist these things around, whatever you want to do. Or don't overthink it. Just go in here with your move brush and smooth. You can even do zero mesh half, just to kind of give you some new geometry that's not, you know, a squashed cylinder here. Whatever you want to do. So we'll bring these back here. Shift Z, like so. And then again, we'll inflate. So again, I want to kind of keep this thin, so I'm going to thin this out, and then I'm going to merge these two together. So I'm going to take this one here. I have a hotkey for merge down. And in fact, I'm going to inflate this up here. I'm going to make this all... Yes, I'm going to make this all one solid mesh. And again, you could Boolean this or not overthinking it, just Dynamesh this together. Now, when I do a Fibermesh, it's going to give this tail its own polygroup, which I think is fine. Let's scoot this up. Let's go back down to our smooth brush and switch that back. I like to do, the default is 0. I like to do weighted smooth mode of 1. That's smooth stronger. And now we have a mesh we can start growing our hair out of. However, before I do that, you're going to notice this has color on it. So if I push this back, we could actually paint those stripes in. So let's do RGB, well, BPA. Make sure brush, samples, spotlight projection is on, RGB up to 100. And go through here and we can start painting. So I'm going to do a quick C to sample, maybe a little darker than that. Control Alt, color, fill object. I think I missed, when I was setting up ZBrush 2025, I think I missed some stuff. And then we'll go through here a little darker, maybe a little redder, maybe a little less saturated. And we can start painting in, let's use my standard brush, start painting in the stripes. So before we grow our Fibermesh, we can use the poly paint to go through So basically your Fibermesh will grow through this poly paint here, and then this just has rings. Now for this Fibermesh, I'm just going to go through and change the settings. I'm not going to use like a fur preset or anything like that. Although once you change your settings, you can save what you've done as a fur preset. Nothing wrong with that. There we go. So now, on this one, I'm going to mask everything. So just Control Tap. We're going to go back up here to our Fibermesh. We're going to say Preview. This is just going to give us a default. I'm going to say base color of white, tip color of white, and I want to say is it tip color of 0? What is it? What is it? What is it? Base color of 1, tip color of 1. So tip color of 0, base color of a very low number. I'm not exactly sure. I'm trying to remember. Most of my life is spent trying to remember. There we go. Polypaint Fibermesh, Polypaint to texture, basically growing Fibermesh through if you wanted more information on that. I think I got it. So here is our default settings here. What I'm going to do to make this a little more hairy is I'm going to go down here to segments. I'm going to crank that up a little bit, and we're going to go through here and we're going to fluff this out. So gravity down just a bit, and then our width. You know what? Did it keep? I think it kept our grass. This doesn't look terrible. But we can say, you know, let's reset this. This is our width profile. This is our coverage, so we can kind of thicken up the hair. Now, right now, this hair is just a basically a card. If we go down here to our profile, it's set to 1. If you wanted this to be actual geometry, like a tube, you got to go in here and just up this to, like, let's say 4. Say OK, and that'll turn it into like tubular geometry. Now, if you do keep it at a card, and when you hit BPR underneath, oh, I forgot the we're still rendering to redshift. Okay, fine. Need to turn that off. But basically, you can go in here and you can change your profile set to 1. So when you hit BPR, underneath the BPR settings, it's actually going to say, hey, turn this flat geometry into rounded geometry, and then even if it has low segments, it'll smooth your geometry, so it'll kind of give you a nice smooth anisotropic look. And I forgot we had redshift rendering on, so we'll see if it sent all that fiber over. What step should I follow to open my ZBrush 2024 file as a project in the 2023 version? Do a tool export FBX, I think is your best bet. You're going to lose some like subdivision history you have to reconstruct. So go 2024, go, let's show you. And also let's do this. Render, redshift render off. So now, again, like I was saying, underneath BPR settings, it's going to subdivide twice and give you 4 sides, even if you are a profile of 1. So when I hit BPR, this will, you'll see this thicken up. All the cards will suddenly turn round, and then they'll also smooth out a little bit. However, you can also control that here. You can say, you know what, I want a actual profile of geometry on here. I want more segments than just 3, and I will go, and then this one too, you can say, you know, subdivisions down, sides is already off. So now when you BPR render, it's just going to render the geometry that's there. And you can still groom this if you're so inclined. If you're happy with this generally, we can say accept. And now it's in its own fiber. And then again, BG, brush, groom, hair toss. You can go through here and you can just start grooming, even though it's, you know, cards, or not cards, but actual, you know, rounded geometry. And this stuff too, you can export as just geo. This here is all just fiber mesh. Here, all these little fibery, little hairy things on there. That's just Fibermesh exported. Has a little subsurface scatter, a volumetric translucency baked in. Oop, I forgot to attach those weights to that arm. But anyway, don't look at my mistakes. Yeah, oh, back to, yeah. So if you wanted to do that, go to Tool, Export. Well, first, go in here to Subtool, All High. Where's that at? Subtool, All High. And then go in here to Tool, Export, that is an FBX. It will save your polypane. It'll save your, you know, your meshes, obviously, even your names, your subtools, all of that it'll save. And then when you open it back up, just go through your high and then just go down here to Geometry, Reconstruct Subdivisions, click, 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 click until you're back. And then you should be back to where you started. Ish. You still have to set up your creasing. It'll maintain your polygroups too, FBX, so that's good. Yeah. Okay, so we got this. How much time we got? We got 4 minutes left, so that's about as far as we're going to get. So you know what? We'll turn on perspective. We'll turn on floor. We'll turn off that hat here, because I think this is our best bet. This one we don't need anymore. We can just delete that out of our scene here. I think this is looking pretty hot. Good stuff, Mike. Render. There you go. We'll leave on this note. Cool. Thanks, everybody. And I might, because again, making the log itself isn't that hard. So getting a skinny person in here, a beefy boy, putting this little hat on him. I did want to do this one here, where we kind of slice through. In fact, it would be reminiscent of something like this here, these two. So we kind of did a fin. If you want to go back and watch that live stream, you can see us putting in the little skeletons and then making the muscles for this guy and giving him a little case. There we go. There's the fin. But like I said, if you want to see the live streams, feel free to check those out. And yeah, anyway, that's how you can make log, some accessories. You see it's pretty straightforward. And there we go. Beauty render. Thanks, everybody.